Hello, friends. About 2 years ago, I was pretty unhappy with my life. My husband Jim had been gone for 6.5 years. And for those who may not know, Jim was the biology professor at Goshen College who was murdered back in October of 2011. I had done 2 high school graduations, 1 college graduation with 1 more to come, and had the birth of another grandchild, all without him. I wasn't sure I still wanted to live in the home we'd raised our kids. Lots of good memories there, but also some painful ones. And maybe it was time just to pick up and move. I was tired of dealing with detectives, and even though they were great people, I had answered thousands of questions, and we were still no closer to finding Jim's killer. Living in a world where marriage is the norm was sometimes hard. I wanted to go back to how things used to be. God spoke to me through Jeremiah's life that summer. Jeremiah was a prophet. He had the tough job of telling God's people that they would be off to exile in Babylon unless they repented. Well, they didn't change their behavior, and they ended up in captivity in Babylon. Then they repented and expected God to return them to Jerusalem immediately. But God had different plans for them. Jeremiah 29, verse 4, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses and settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, don't decrease. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I've carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. This is what the Lord says: when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." I felt like God was saying to me, you're in a season of pain, but it will not always be this way. You may always be a widow, but this pain will not always be here. This season will end, but in the meantime, settle on down. You're going to be here for a while. You'll still work with the detectives on a regular basis. You will still live with the effects of trauma and violence. You can mourn the past and the future, but I want you to live in the present. Set down roots where you are. It's time to bloom where you're planted. I've put you here for a reason. Work hard in your community and church so that others will be blessed, and that's how you will be blessed. When these painful days are over, I will bring a new level of healing. I have some new things for you. All I will say about them is that they are good, and I will restore your hope. Keep praying with all your heart. I'm listening. Trust me, you will not always be where you are now. God leads us in difficult seasons of life. Sometimes we're in these seasons alone. Sometimes we're in them with others. And right now, the whole world is experiencing a pandemic. Our lives are changed. We have learned what social distancing, PPE, and pandemic mean. Never have we used so much hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes. Never have we stayed home as much as we have in these past 7 or so weeks. We're living in a new world, even though our location has not changed. I believe the words Jeremiah spoke to the people of Israel could also be spoken to us. We're finding ourselves in a world we don't like. We want to get back to how it was. We want to find everything we need at the store in one trip. We want church to be like it was. We want to work like we did before. We want to go back to living without restrictions. Jeremiah tells the Israelites, settle on down, plant gardens and eat the produce. It's very likely they're growing different veggies and cooking new recipes because they're living in a different part of the world. We too will have new ways of doing things that'll be with us for a long time. Get married and have kids just like you did before. You have time for all this. You won't be heading back to Jerusalem for a while. Just get on with life. I think verse 7 is something we need to consider carefully. God says, "Seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper." Seek the peace and prosperity of the community where you are living. Seek the larger good. Sometimes it's hard to think of what will be best for all of us and not just my family. Think of everybody. It's not just me, myself, and I. It's we, them, and us. And if our community prospers, we all prosper. For the Israelites, they're going to be in this new place for 70 years. And hopefully, we won't be living with the restrictions we're facing now for 70 years. But it will be a while before we're back to how it was before. And we may never return completely to how it was. There'll be growing pains and learning new ways of doing things. But God can bless us in this. His plans bring us a future and a hope. We're not in a hopeless situation. We can call on Him, pray, and seek Him. And what will happen? God will listen to us and be found by us. He will bring us into a deeper relationship with Him and our community. So I want to leave us all here today with these two questions. How can you work for the peace and prosperity of your community? And then, how can we as a church work for the peace and prosperity of our community?